Before I start this video, I want to clarify that although I am LGBT, I'm not trans myself. However, I've shared these interpretations with a few trans friends, and they've agreed that they sound likely enough, so I want to put them out here. This video will decipher two LOONA songs, Hasul's Let Me In and Eve's New, and explain why there is a strong likelihood that they are meant to depict the characters within as transgender. Although I think that there is a great chance that this was BBC's intention, I also accept that I might be wrong and might be throwing darts at a wall. First, Let Me In. This is one that I didn't consider until a little ways before I wrote this, which I then smacked myself in the head over because now that I look, it's obvious. Let Me In is a love ballad and refers to two people, or two halves of the same person, a boy and a girl specifically. The song's chorus refers to the girl as the boy's girl, and many of its lyrics refer to the distance between the two, however different they are, closing bit by bit. The lyrics to this song, compared to Around You's prior somber depiction of romance, seem a bit vague and metaphorical, but that's on the assumption that the song is indeed about romance. Taken as a song of transitioning from one gender to the other, they start to make more sense. Particularly noteworthy are the chorus and the end lyric. Hasul identifies the girl, presumably herself, as the boy's girl, and later as the boy's wish. In other words, a boy who wants to be a girl. The content of the video here is also worth looking at as it features two Hasuls. The normal one, dressed in a shawl with long brown hair, and the bird one, dressed in feathers and a short blonde bob, both roaming the frozen fields of Iceland. It can be hard to imagine due to Bird Hasul's feminine getup in the video, but this is actually supposed to be a male version of her. This isn't just speculation. LOONA TV refers to the Hasul who wears the blonde wig as Boy Hasul multiple times, and the photo shirts for her album dressed her in men's clothing along with a bob. So the music video features a male and female version of the same person. What you might be wondering about, however, is what the end of the video means. No matter which way you slice it, romance or transgender, the end of this video is confusing in its own badass way. Hasul arms herself with a slingshot loaded with a diamond and shoots down her bird/male self. This display of hostility is at odds with either interpretation. So what's going on? I think that the end of the video is Hasul having completed her transition. Now the beautiful girl she's always been within, she says goodbye to her former male self, putting him down with one good shot. The boy has gotten his wish, and she no longer is bound to him. So it's time to kill him. Transgender people's old discarded name is usually called a dead name, so Hasul killed her old self to become her new self. This is the primary reason I think that the song is about a gender transition, and Hasul firmly being transgender as opposed to seeking romance, because you wouldn't kill someone you wanted in your life, only someone you wanted out of it. This isn't a hateful or distressed kill. Hasul is simply putting her old self to rest. But with that, we finish examining Hasul and move on to Eve. The first thing that needs to be addressed here is the fact that Eve is directly linked to a male figure in a previous video, and all but confirmed to be the same person. That male figure is the love interest in Every Day I Love You. I always thought it was odd that BBC gave the male extra in VV's solo such focus, since in previous solos, the love interest had always had his face hidden, always facing away from the camera and around you, and being hidden under a huge frog head in Kiss Later. But then it all makes sense. His face is so proudly shown off because this is intended to be another member whose solo came later. The skating scenes in Every Day I Love You are directly repeated in New. What's more, on the day that New was released, information concerning Every Day I Love You was also released, where the story came out. The 90s themed events are recollections from android VV's previous human life, and may be flawed. Most people took this to mean that Vivi is misremembering events and that the male trainee we saw before was actually the female Eve the whole time. But I think that the male Eve we saw then actually was physically male, and that Vivi is remembering that aspect correctly. My theory is that in between those events and New, Eve transitioned. And why do I think this? Because of the theme of the video and the song. Eve started a short trend with the YYXY videos wherein the lyrics of the solo song are actually heavily linked with what's happening on screen, when in other cases they've only been loosely related or not at all, with Kiss Later being the odd man out. Eve's song and music video are about self-love, framed as biting the tempting apple and being thrown out of Eden, sacrificing the good, familiar, and comfortable life she has for the life she truly wants to lead. Beyond just the fact that Eve is directly framed as the same person as the guy from Every Day I Love You, there are several hints in her own video. First, the shoes. Eve is shown walking out of one pair and into another. The first pair are the Converse which Odd Eye Circle wore so often, and the next pair are the heeled, polished shoes YYXY would go on to wear. This not only represents Luna leaving the Odd Eye Circle era and moving into YYXY's era, but represents Eve moving from being a male into a female. The Converse OEC wore was one more aspect of them that signified them as girl crush, or in their case, girls taking the traditionally masculine roles. They sing about asking the guy out instead of waiting for him to ask her out, etc. The next part is this scene, a more clear visual metaphor. Here, Eve is literally cutting ties to her name. The name is admittedly the name she is using now, but they couldn't really use another one without starting billions of months of speculation about who they referred to. This is a visual metaphor for a transitioned person cutting ties to their old name, which I referred to earlier with Hostel as the dead name. Eve is confident and self-assured. She doesn't hate herself, so why would she cut ties to her name? Because her name is another part of herself that she wants to leave behind as she changes. The next and final part, I believe, is the most important. The golfing scenes and the stuffed animals. The specific animal that Eve violently rids herself of is a duck, and a ratty-looking one at that. And what is Eve's animal? A swan. Yes, Eve's signature animal is a commentary on her change, from Ugly Duckling to Beautiful Swan, or, if you prefer, a male self that she hated into a female self that she loves. Everything about Eve's choice of animal and the animal she discards is a reference to the children's story, The Ugly Duckling. You've almost certainly heard this story before. It comes from author Hans Christian Andersen, who wrote The Little Mermaid. A safe, straight way to write about his yearning for another man that he couldn't have and the inability to confess such a love. His own character becoming the female Ariel, Hans Christian Andersen is the perfect choice to link back to when writing about a man becoming a woman as well. The Ugly Duckling features a duckling, male by the way, who hates himself, but later transforms into a swan, the most beautiful animal of all. I'm not here to comment on Andersen's sexuality, but he did remain celibate all his life, and on at least one occasion compared himself to a woman when describing the romantic feelings he felt to and about Edward Cullen. I languish for you as for a pretty Calabrian wench. My sentiments for you are those of a woman. The femininity of my nature and our friendship must remain a mystery. My point is, Eve's rejection of the duckling blush and embrace of herself, the swan, in the music video is a reflection of her embracing herself as a woman, not a man. Just as in Hostel's case, Eve's choice of lyrics are also suspect. They even use similar language, such as referring to their hearts getting colored and filled and comparing themselves to flowers. Really, what makes this song such a hot button as a transgender anthem is that its lyrics, most decidedly about self-love, don't reflect an acceptance of the self she's always been. Most self-love songs, and indeed most self-love ideas, reject the idea of changing yourself to suit an ideal, and to instead love yourself as you are. Eve doesn't do that. Instead, she rejects the self that she was in favor of her new self, and most assuredly changes for the better, yet loves herself no less for it, something that should be relatable to most if not all transgender people who have successfully embraced their new gender or transitioned. Everyone thinks of lesbian love when they think of the LGBT depictions in Luna lore, but what if that wasn't all there was? Because I think it isn't. I think Luna, and particularly the YYXY era, go as far as to depict both non-straight and non-cisgender characters without any hesitation.